sufficient feedback given to help the pupil understand any potential safety critical incidences. So we can understand why this is on risk management. And what I'd like you to do is to point you towards or have a little look at the DL25 on this. And that is the marking sheet for any practical test that the DVSA conducts. Once you understand how that is assessed, if you're training with me, I will have arranged or you will have had a talk with either an examiner or an ex-examiner who has been trained in assessing a practical test, and where they put the mark that tips over from either not worthy fault to a worthy fault, as in a driver fault, straight through to a serious fault, which would result in a fail, or then a dangerous fault. Once you understand where serious and dangerous is marked, you'll understand how to meet this competency, if that makes sense. Most of us, as a full licence holder and training for part 2, you will already understand or have a feeling of what would be considered high risk, and that's the key really here, is what was high risk, what could potentially create a safety critical moment. So I'll give you an example of things that I've seen where people have not met this competency because they haven't dealt with it enough or well enough competently, as the DVSA will be looking at it. So we've had a learner who has straight lined a roundabout or completely mistook, clipped the right lane when they should have been staying on the left lane or the near side lane to follow the road ahead. Either the PDI or the ADI has just completely ignored it because they thought it was safe and no one was there, or they haven't dealt with it sufficiently. Now, if there's a safety critical incident, the best advice I can give you is please deal with the incident first, try and take control if you need to, and then you must pull in. And as you know, if you've watched the other videos, you'll see anything like this needs dealing with first. So it's all very well having a structure, it's all very well having a bit of a plan on your lessons, on your test. That's our job. We should risk assess and pre-plan what we're going to do. However, plans don't always continue if things occur during that time, and this is where DVSA have recognised that, and they are saying as long as you deal with that sufficiently, that's still okay. So we need to be pulling them in. We need to be asking them, do they understand what just happened there? Or talk to me about, you could even do the praise sandwich, talk to me about what went well before that happened, and then we could go on to, now talk to me about the incident there. I've just seen you straight line the roundabout. Were you aware that you clipped to the right lane? You could even get a visual out and ask them to draw where they thought the positioning was. But either way, you're asking them their opinion on said junction. But firstly, it's up to you to recognise that that's a safety critical fault. We know there's two different schools of thought, or there's a lot more than that, but generally, if we're dealing with a full licence holder who's maybe training for ROSPA, that's the Royal Society of the Prevention of Accidents, which quite often the police will use, or ambulance drivers, then we know straight line and roundabout is thought about slightly differently, and that's because you're dealing with an advanced driver. So we've got another aspect there. If we're dealing with a full licence holder who is training for that, then that would be okay, as long as we've assessed that they've checked the mirrors and that was okay. I would still raise the issue though. You could even ask, what if someone was in the right lane there, what would you have done differently? And if they said I'd have stuck to the left lane, that would be fine. If they said I didn't check my mirrors, or I thought I was in the left lane, then we've got an issue. But you've already seen that issue first, and it's up to you to deal with a potential safety critical incident, or a critical incident as well. And if we think about it, the core comps underpin this. I can't stress this enough. So we've got to identify, we've got to analyse the fault, and we've got to put in the remedial action. So for me, especially any safety critical instances which could have resulted in either potential crash or the 3 S's, or I say the 4 S's. If anyone would have slowed, stopped, or swerved for us, or I say swear, anyone would have done the 4 S's, then we know we've got an issue then that we need to deal with. So what we would then do is pull in, at a suitable time when it's appropriate, but not too far down the line in the lesson. It needs to be as soon as possible, as soon as practically possible. Identify, so just noticed you've just gone straight on at the roundabout. Can I just show you what you did? Or can you draw where you think you were? And then analyze, so what are the dangers of doing it like that? Hopefully they will recognize and have time to analyze that retrospectively. And then we can use hindsight. What would you have done different, or what could you do differently if I ask you to go and do that again? So we'll put in the remedial action before we go off and do that again. I hope that makes sense. We don't want to leave it too long. We don't want to ignore the faults. We want to make sure that's our job. This is our job, to teach people to be safe on the UK roads. So whether you're going with the routine of MSPSL and the DVSA's take, or ROSPA, and how that kind of sort of routine affects the safety critical incidents, we deal with them slightly different. But please remember, this is a DVSA qualification you're going for, so most people will be guided by DVSA rules. So if you understand where imagine you're on test and you're an examiner, and that pen would be going from a driver fault over to a serious, or 100% a serious, or 100% a dangerous, we should be dealing with this fault. So we put that lesson on pause to go and deal with this fault. And this is where it's kind of important that we're taking a pupil or someone who's past the early stages, really, just so that we can adapt the lesson and we can step back a little bit to deal with what they should already know in their knowledge base and their practical skills is safe. So yeah, you're highlighting the faults, but we're keeping the core comp strong. Hope this helps.